You know, sometimes you just say things in the heat of the moment, things you don't really mean, or at least things you don't think through, and then suddenly, boom, your whole life gets turned upside down. I'm Brianna. I'm 32. It all started really with Lily, my stepdaughter. I never really thought of her as mine. Not truly. She was Mark's from his first marriage. He had full custody after his exie, Sarah. Basically pieced out when Lily was little. Mark was a good dad, always there for her, always trying to do the right thing. He's the type who believes in fairness, in working things out a bit too much. Sometimes he was pretty even-keeled, which sometimes felt like he was just disengaged. Like, when I was getting upset about something, he'd just look at me with that calm, almost tired expression. Like he'd been through this 1,000 times. And maybe he had with Sarah, or with me. I guess he was also really committed to his work. He was in, like, logistics. Always crunching numbers and making sure supply chains didn't collapse. It meant long hours. And sometimes he'd bring that focus home. It wasn't that he was a bad guy. He just wasn't always present, even when he was physically there. Lily was 10 when I moved in. Sweet kid, I guess. Quiet? Always reading. I tried, I really did. We went shopping. I tried to help her with homework, but it always felt forced. Like I was performing. She was always comparing me to Sarah, even if she didn't say it directly. Little comments, little looks. And Mark? He always sided with her. Always. If Lily said something, it was gospel. If I said something, it was always, Brianna, you need to be more understanding. Or, Brianna, she's just a child. One day, I'm trying to make dinner. Some chicken dish I'd found online. Trying to be all domestic and stuff. Lily comes in, nose buried in a book, bumps into me, and spills a whole glass of milk all over the freshly cleaned floor. Milk everywhere. And on my new shoes, I snapped. I don't know why. It was just milk. But it felt like the last straw that day. Mark had been working late all week. I'd been dealing with a demanding client at my job. I work for a company that deals with online content, making sure things run smoothly. It's pretty fast-paced. And my boss is a real piece of work. So I was already on edge. Lily, what is wrong with you? I practically yelled, and she just froze, looking at the milk pooling around my feet. Can't you pay attention for 1 second? This is why you can't have nice things. Because you're always messing them up. She started to tear up, and that just made me angrier. Oh, don't start with the waterworks. Lily, it's always something with you. That's when she looked at me, her eyes red, and said, you're not my real mom. And it hit me. Something just snapped in my brain. All those little comments, the comparisons, the way Mark always took her side. It just boiled over. You're right, I shot back, louder than I intended. I'm not your real mom. And thank goodness for that, because your real mom actually left you. She didn't want you. So don't you dare talk to me like that. The words just hung there in the air, thick and heavy. Lily's face crumpled, and she ran out of the kitchen, sobbing. I stood there, breathing heavily, looking at the milk. And then the front door opened, and Mark walked in. He took one look at me, saw the mess, heard Lily crying upstairs, and his face just hardened. It wasn't a look of anger, not really. It was just profound disappointment. Like he was seeing me for the first time, and he didn't like what he saw. What did you say to her? Brianna? He asked, his voice low, dangerously calm. I tried to backtrack, to explain. She spilled milk, Mark, and then she said I wasn't her real mom. And I just reacted. He didn't even bother to respond. He just went upstairs. I heard him talking to Lily, his voice soothing, comforting, and I just stood there in the kitchen, feeling like an idiot. The milk was still there, a white puddle on the floor. I didn't clean it up right away. I just stared at it, feeling the anger slowly turn into something colder, something heavy in my stomach. I knew I had messed up, but at the same time, I felt like I had a right to be angry. She had started it. Hadn't she? Always with the real mom stuff. It was unfair. The pressure that night was tense. Mark didn't come down for dinner. He stayed with Lily. I ate alone, the chicken tasting like ash in my mouth. Later, he came downstairs, went straight to the fridge for a glass of water, and didn't even look at me. We need to talk, I said, trying to sound calm. But my voice wavered. He sighed, a long, weary sound. I don't know what there is to talk about. Brianna, you crossed a line, a big one. She provoked me. Mark. She always says things. She always compares me to Sarah. You always take her side. I heard the whine in my voice, and I hated it. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were just empty. You brought up her mother abandoning her. You used that against a 10-year-old child. Do you have any idea how much that hurts her? How much she struggles with that? Well, maybe if she didn't keep throwing it in my face that I'm not her real mom, I retorted, feeling the defensive wall rise up again. He just shook his head. You know what, Brianna? I'm done. I can't do this anymore. This isn't healthy for Lily. And honestly, it's not healthy for me. My heart hammered in my chest. Done. What do you mean? Done. I think you should move out, he said, his voice flat. I can't have someone in this house who intentionally hurts my daughter like that. I stared at him, my mouth agape. Are you serious? You're kicking me out over a spilled glass of milk and a few words. It wasn't just a few words. Brianna. And it's not just this. It's everything. The constant negativity, the way you speak to her, the way you act like she's a burden. I've tried to talk to you about it so many times, but you just don't get it. Or you don't care. He was standing there, arms crossed, looking at me like I was a stranger, and that's when I realized he wasn't going to back down. This wasn't just an argument. This was final. The words I had hurled at Lily, they were coming back to hit me. Hard. I felt a cold dread settle over me. I wanted to yell, to scream, to make him see how unfair he was being, how she was just as much to blame. But the words wouldn't come. He just stood there, waiting. I packed my things in a blur. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life. My clothes, my books, my little trinkets. Everything that made this house feel like my home was suddenly just stuff. Mark didn't help. He just stayed in his room, I guess. Or with Lily. I didn't see him again before I left. I called my friend, Natalie, who lives in a small apartment downtown. She said I could crash with her for a bit. She's always been good for that, for lending an ear, even if she always ends up telling me I should have just apologized. As if living with Natalie was fine for a bit. But she's one of those people who always wants to talk about feelings and how I should process things. I just wanted to forget it. Mark called a few times, mostly about getting my remaining stuff. But the conversations were always short. Formal? Like we were strangers. It hurt more than I thought it would. I kept replaying that night, trying to find where I could have said something different or done something different. But then I'd get angry again. It wasn't my fault. Not entirely. Lily was difficult. Mark was unsupportive. They were ganging up on me. That's how it felt. A few months passed. I found a tiny studio apartment in a slightly rougher part of town. Still in the city, though. It was cheap, but it felt small, lonely. My job was fine, but the demanding client was still demanding, and my boss was still my boss. I missed the house. I missed the routine. Even the routine with Lily sometimes. I missed Mark. He was quiet, but he was always there. He always made sure the bills were paid, that the car had gas. Little things you don't notice until they're gone. I had to start dealing with all that myself. It was annoying. I saw Mark once, a few weeks after I moved out. I was at the grocery store, just picking up some essentials, and there he was, with Lily. She looked happier. She was laughing, pointing at something in the produce section, and Mark was smiling, genuinely smiling, something I hadn't seen from him in a long time. He saw me, and his smile faded. He just nodded curtly, and then he and Lily quickly moved in the other direction. It felt like a punch to the gut, like I was invisible, like I never even existed. That's when I really felt it, the profound, unsettling sense of being replaced, or rather, erased. I started checking his social media. He wasn't big on it, but he had a few pictures up. Photos of Lily, photos of his dog, photos of a new woman. She was pretty, brunettes, bright smile, and she was in a lot of the pictures with Lily, laughing, baking, going to the park. It stung. It really did. It was barely 6 months, and he had already moved on. And with someone who seemed to be everything I wasn't, passionate, kind to Lily, probably baked cookies and wore flowy dresses. I hated her immediately. I didn't know her name, but I knew I hated her. I complained to Natalie about it. Can you believe him? 6 months. And he's already parading some new woman around Lily. It's disgusting. Natalie, bless her heart. Always try to be fair. Brianna, it's been a while. And you guys weren't exactly happy at the end. Maybe he just found someone who fits better. She probably just fakes it, like all of them, always pretending to be perfect. She probably tells Lily she's her real mom now. I scoffed. I was bitter. I knew it, but I couldn't help it. Then, a few weeks ago, I got the email, an invitation from Mark. My heart actually skipped a beat. Was he finally coming to his senses? Was he going to apologize? Was this a reconciliation? I opened it, my hands trembling a little. It was an invitation to his wedding. To her, the brunette, Chloe. Her name was Chloe. I just stared at the screen. My breath hitched in my throat. Wedding, Mark was getting married. Not to me, to Chloe, the woman who baked with Lily, the woman who smiled genuinely at the grocery store. And then I saw it, further down the invite, small, almost an afterthought. Please note, this is an adults-only event. Children will not be present. And then a little asterisk next to my name on the guest list. And a note, due to the intimate nature of the celebration, we have limited the guest list to immediate family and close friends. We hope you understand. I scrolled down, and there it was. Lily, listed as a flower girl. A special role, but me, just an asterisk. I wasn't even considered close family anymore, or even a close friend. I was just an afterthought, a footnote. I felt a hot flush of shame, then immediate, searing anger. He was getting married to her, and he didn't even want me there. Not really. That note about the children not being present, I knew exactly what that was about. It was about Lily, and it was about me. He knew I'd probably say something, or do something, or just make things awkward. He was protecting Chloe, and more importantly, he was protecting Lily from me. The bitterness was like a raw wound. I couldn't believe it. After everything we had been through, all the years, he was just moving on, without a second thought. And he was doing it so publicly, so definitively. I was being erased, not just from his life, but from the narrative. Chloe was the new narrative. Chloe and Lily. And Mark, the perfect little family. I called Natalie, practically screaming into the phone. Can you believe this? He's getting married, and he barely even invited me. He practically uninvited me. He just wants to rub it in my face that he's happy now. And I'm not. Natalie was quiet for a moment. Brianna, maybe he just wants a peaceful wedding, and you know what you said to Lily was really hurtful. Maybe he just doesn't trust you to be there without causing a scene. A scene? What scene? I wouldn't cause a scene. I'm a grown woman, I retorted, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. A part of me, a small, dark part, did want to cause a scene. I wanted to make him regret it. I wanted to make Chloe regret it. I wanted to tell everyone exactly what kind of man Mark really was. How he abandoned me. How he always took Lily's side. How he never truly appreciated me. But then, what good would that do? It would just make me look even worse. And he was clearly happy. He had found someone who could be the perfect stepmom. The perfect wife. And I was stuck in my tiny apartment, dealing with my demanding boss and my annoying friend who always wanted me to process things. It was unfair. So incredibly unfair. Sometimes, late at night, I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about that night with the milk. If I had just kept my mouth shut, if I had just cleaned it up, quietly, if I hadn't let those words spill out. But then, I always came back to the same thought. She started it. She said I wasn't her real mom, and she was right, but she didn't have to rub it in. And Mark, he never took my side, never once. He always defended her. So, in the end, it was their fault. Really, their fault I was here? Alone. Uninvited to a wedding that should have been mine. I heard through some mutual acquaintances that Mark and Chloe were doing great. That Lily adored Chloe, called her Aunt Chloe, and was always laughing with her. That Mark was even thinking about expanding his logistics business. Something he'd always dreamed of. He seemed to be thriving, in a way he never quite did when we were together. It just made me angrier. It wasn't fair that he got to be happy, that he got to have his perfect little family, while I was left out in the cold. I didn't care about him. Not really. But the injustice of it all, that's what burned. He didn't deserve it. Not after how he treated me. And she certainly didn't deserve him either. No, I wasn't going to that wedding. Not even if he begged me. It was his loss, not mine. I was free. Free to be me. And if that meant being alone for a bit, then so be it. But I wasn't going to pretend I was happy for them. Not ever.